okuchingirira inche chamenshi ifyapala inika umubemba amabwe mufisapa ero na kuntulo ya menshi okuchecheta n'okuyishiba umubelo n'okufula kwa menshi n'okuyanga kukaba ekilala nangu ilyenshi pamonga abo tubomba nabo mulekabirwa okulembesha ifishima fya menshi n'akabungwe ka wama okulembesha ichishima cha pang'anda tatulipirishana kalya iyo abemba ifishima fya kubomfya kumakwebo balingira okupoka ipaso ili akubomfya menshi nangu kwimba ifishiba nga mulefayo okuyishibira pwefingi moneni pa website yesu ya www.wama.org.zm.
Welcome to the Water Resources Management Authority radio program, WAMA.
Good morning and welcome to the WAMA radio program. I'm your host, CECILIA TRESHA. You can listen to us on Simple Radio, Radio Garden, Radio Box, and All One Z, and we are live on the 5FM Radio Zambia Facebook page. Today we're looking at water resources as a common agenda, where we're having resources are a common small Senior Research and Planning Officer. Mr. LUBABA, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cecilia. I'm happy to be here. Good morning, listeners.
All right. Okay, to get started, why should the protection of water resources be a common agenda?
Thank you so much. Water is a very, very, very important resource for human survival. So if you realize that water is actually one of the things that have been enshrined in the Universal Human Rights Declaration. Mm-hmm. So for human to survive, we need water. Mm-hmm. So because of water, what I would say is required by everyone to survive, or the environment to survive, man to thrive, they require water. I'll give you an example. This morning, everybody, as we wake up, we have used water for bathing, mm-hmm. we have used water for cooking, we have used, so it's an ingredient for so many things that we do. So it's something that's everybody. Mm. So when you talk about human health, for you to live a very good health life, you require water. Mm. So you need to take care of water. So it's on everybody's mind that we protect and manage this water well at whatever levels where we are. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about economies, for an economy to thrive, water is a very important strategic resource. Mm-hmm. So without water, it affects productivity in the economy. Mm-hmm. You talk about agriculture. For you to have a better agriculture, to have better productivity in agriculture, you require water. Mm-hmm. So it involves you. Talk about mining. For people to do mining, water is an important ingredient. Mm-hmm. Talk about manufacturing, water is an important ingredient. Even tourism, we talk about Zambia's tourism. Without water, there won't be tourism. The falls requires water. For you to enjoy the falls, to go to there, they need to be plenty of water. So it's really, really important. For animals that we go to see in the world national parks, it's because of water. They are always found near the sources of water. That's when you can go and enjoy and sing them. Yeah. So it's a very, very important to talk about water. It's a topic that involves everybody to talk about. It's a resource that requires everybody to look after. So it's quite very, very critical for all of us to talk about water and look after water.
Okay. All right, we're on the WAMA radio program, and if you're just joining us, we are joined by Mr. Douglas LUBABA, who's Senior Research and Planning Officer at WAMA, and we look at water resources as a common agenda, where we're having a detailed explanation of why water resources are a common agenda for all. And in case you'd like to get interactive, you can call on 0955-221-515 or send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 0761-912493 and get interactive with Mr. LUBABA. I'm sure he will be able to help however and when he can. And moving on, so we all say water is life, right? And based on the explanation that you've given, almost everything that we're doing here has got some water involved in it. How is WAMA operating in ensuring the management of water resources becomes a duty of every well-meaning Zambian?
Thank you. That's a very, very important question. As I explained earlier, water is important for everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's a duty of everybody to look after water. But mm-hmm. then how as an authority working to ensure that water becomes a duty of everybody? So one, we are engaged in what we term stake engagement. So we engage a lot of stakeholders at various levels to be able to share information, public awareness on how best we can manage water resources. I'll give you an example. As an authority, we have got programs that we have designed where we go to different areas, engage the chiefs, engage the local authorities on the sustainable management of water resources, on the protection of water resources. We go to areas which are affected and talk to people. And then people also give feedback on how best we be able to manage this resource. Secondly, like we have designed programs like the one that I'm in right now. So through these forums, we are able to share information on how best we can manage these water resources. So we interact with the public, we engage the public on water resources matters, as well as also informing about the law itself, what the law tells, what the law says about water resources management, because there is a lot of people who are not aware on what they should do. So by engaging them, by providing them information, by sensitizing them, then we empower them with information on how best they will be able to manage water resources. Yes.
Okay. And how do ordinary Zambians work with WARMA in the protection of water resources?
That's also a very important one. So ordinary Zambians, really, because they are affected most of the time. I will start by explaining one thing. When we were growing up, we used to see certain rivers or streams which are plenty of water, but now those streams are no more. So people have seen where they live in their localities, how water has been changing. So they have seen the depletion of water in the rivers. So with that have prompted them to take action. So one way in which they do that, they report illegalities. When they see illegal activities happening, some visit WARMA offices, they call WARMA and report such. So that's one way they're acting about it. Secondly, others take an extra step where they're involved in restoration activities. I'll give you an example. In Southern Province, because of issues to do with drying and also changing the climate, we have seen depletion of water resources. And some of the activities, because Southern Province is a place where we have got a lot of cattle, so because of this cattle handling, the way they're managing this land, it's affecting water resources. So there's depletion of groundwater as well as surface water. So communities have grouped together to find ways in which they are going to restore part of the catchment. So part of the catchment requires that they work together. They receive technical education. We train them with our partners on how best they will be able to do what we call artificial recharge. So when you have a better rain season, so that water could be retained and streams can be sustained. Secondly, others are involved in tree planting. So when you are planting trees, you know there is a connection between trees, especially on river sources, water sources. So because of deforestation, all these have been degraded. So communities are planting trees. WARMA working with other organizations in partnering where trees are being planted, which is also helping us in terms of managing these water resources. So when you take such an action, it's an important one toward ensuring that the water that we have is maintained. Yes.
All right. We are still on the WARMA radio program. We take a short break and pay our bills. We continue talking WARMA on the other side.
Abungwe la Water Resources Management Authority WARMA ndi bungwe lomwe lakhazikitsidwa kugwirisira ntchito malamulo owona pa zamadzi mdzikoli. Ntchito zawo ziphatikizapo kuteteza zamadzi komanso kumalo komwe kupezeka zamadzi monga kumadambo ndi malo ena otere. Iwonso amawona kuti kaya madzi ndi abwino motani komanso ndi ochuluka motani. Onanso pa nkhani zakusefukira kwa madzi komanso chilala cha mvula. Inu pokhala kastomala wathu mufunikira kulembetsa boho yanu ndi WARMA. Awo omwe agwiritsira ntchito madzi osati pa zamalonda kulembetsa ni mwaulere. Komanso mwagwiritsira ntchito madzi pa nkhani zamalonda afunikira kutenga chilolezo chogwiritsira ntchito madzi amenewa kapena kukonza madziwe. Ngati mfutso zambiri, fikani pa website yathu ya www.warma.org.zm.
Welcome back to the radio, WARMA radio program, and today we're looking at the water resources as a common agenda, where we're having a detailed explanation on why water resources are a common agenda for all. And our guest is Mr. Douglas Lubaba, who's a Senior Research and Planning Officer at WARMA. In case you'd like to get interactive with him, you can still call on 0955-221515 or send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0761912493, or you can type that question on our Facebook page, because we're live right now on 5FM Radio Zambia. Right, moving on, Mr. Lubaba, what is WARMA doing to ensure information dissemination and understanding of the importance of water resources protection? So obviously one of them being coming on radio to ensure information is disseminated, but how else is information being disseminated, and what else is WARMA doing to ensure information dissemination and understanding of the importance of water resources protection?
Thank you so much, Cecilia. Besides the sensitization that we are having, like on the radio, so we do other things. We publish what we call monthly bulletins. So these, forgive me, we are saying quarterly bulletin, not monthly bulletin. So we produce quarterly bulletin. So these are the bulletin which contains information about water resources, and we disseminate to members of the public. So if you are interested to know about issues to do with water, whether to do with the quality or quantities in some locations, some of these bulletins contain such information. So that information, when it's shared to the public is aware about water information, which is very, very important. So we also produce a TRESHA yearbook. So this is a document, a little bit technical, which contains information about water resources in the country. So it gives you a snapshot of how water are this year and another year, which is very, very important. So it helps you to make informed decision, particularly if you are in a business where water is a serious business for your business. So it's quite a very, very important thing. So other things that we do also, we have got social media. We make use of social media to share information about water resources and what we can do and how you can act and how you can get involved in water resources management. So we also participate in various forums where WARMA exhibit. So during this exhibition, we obviously disseminate information to members of the public, to stakeholders about water information. We also collaborate with various stakeholders, conservancy organizations, cooperating partners. So we collaborate where we share information, where we also engage, as I mentioned, communities. So it's a very, very important mode of sharing information to people, educating information, particularly local communities, because this is where we have people where they lack information and knowledge. So by educating them through such, it's one way we make sure that people get involved in water resources management and through that information dissemination. Yes.
And how much importance is being attached to this agenda?
As we know that water is life, so it's not something that we have to treat with the kids' gloves. It's an important agenda for us. It's a very, very priority area within WARMA's operations, because if we don't protect our sources of water, or we don't disseminate information about water, then our water resources is going to be impacted negatively. So as an authority, we pay particular attention to water resources management as well as protection. So talking of protection, really, as an authority at all levels, from the board, WARMA board, to senior management at all levels, we have a duty to ensure that we disseminate this information to the public, including our minister is at various forums where he talks about water and how important it is. So you see that as an authority, we pay particular attention to this agenda of water resources management and this protection. That's why when we see people abrogating the law, we move in and take action. Obviously, we work with other agencies who do a similar work like we do, like ZEMA, also to ensure that we protect these water resources and we manage it sustainably. So it's quite very, very key. And we are also attach resources to the activities that we do in terms of information dissemination on water resources, also water resources management, where we do a lot of assessments in the field that will help us to make better decisions. So it's quite a very important to the operations of WARMA.
Okay. How is WARMA prioritizing the agenda of ensuring that all of us are involved in the water resource management?
Yes, this question is almost similar to what we have discussed. Obviously, a repetition is the best teacher. I might be able to repeat some of the points that I've mentioned.
Yes, please.
So how are we to make sure that everybody is involved in water resources management, since it's everybody's business? So what we are doing, obviously, through information dissemination, which is a very, very important way, because if we don't disseminate information, then everybody won't be involved. So then we are also collaborating with stakeholders. I'll give you an example. Local authorities. In Zambia, we have got so many local authorities who are situated closer to communities where they are. So we sign MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, on aspect of water resources management and protection. So there are certain what we call delegated functions, which goes to the local authorities, which we are supposed to be doing. So in that, we ensure that the local authorities who are near to the people, they're actively involved in these things.
Okay.
So that's one way we are doing. So we formalize these things and also do joint work together with this to make sure that we enhance the protection. As you know, Zambia is very big, and water is found in all corners of Zambia, and the WARMA is not found everywhere. So to enhance our operation, to strengthen what we do, these collaborations are very, very key. They are very important to us, because I think with working with these stakeholders and partners, it helps us to strengthen what we do. So that's one key ingredient. Obviously, the other thing is that also I think we take advantage of the work that other people are doing. For instance, cooperating partners who have come on board, who said, look, this is a very big burden. We want also to contribute. So by working with them, taking advantage of their resources and their influence, so it also helps us to that people are involved in water resources management. People are aware, people are empowered with information that helps them to get involved. And how do people get involved? Is by doing things that helps you not to, for instance, contaminate water. So how do you do that? Let's talk about waste management. How do you manage your waste? Are you managing your waste in a very sustainable way? In a very good way? Because if you are throwing out, like a throw-out community or society, you throw out everything, a bottle of water you drink, you throw out. These things end up in the water. So when they enter in the water, they contaminate water resources. So by you doing things in the right manner, as simple as waste management, you contribute. Secondly, in terms of agriculture, so we work with other partners, the Ministry of Agriculture, in what we're calling promoting sustainable agriculture. Because the way we practice our agriculture, I'll give you an example. If you cut so many trees, what does it do? It affects the climate, microclimate. The rains get affected. So if you're not having enough rains, it affects our water resources. So that's an important. So by working with this, it also helps us. So they're working in agriculture, us, we are involved in water resources management. But then these collaborating together, the farmers knows how to do a better way of agriculture. They avoid cutting too much trees. They do tillage, where they avoid a lot of erosion, because if you have got a lot of erosion, they go to water resources, then they form a lot of sediments in the water. The water is not good. So even when you want to come to your taps, it has to go to the utility company. The utility companies have difficulty treating that water. It affects you so much. So there's a lot of connections there. But this collaboration that we do, working with others, it helps us enhance, and so everybody gets involved in water resources management. So you see a lot of government department or ministry with what they do, but then as we continue to working together, our agenda is also moved forward. That's what we do. And you, the media, also play a very, very critical role by constantly engaging you, being at programs like this, and also you are the voice to the people. You always talk to the people. So when we empower you with information, with like these ones, obviously you are influencers. You'll be able to share this information to people, and people will be empowered. They know how to do. Really, water resources, are very important, as I mentioned earlier. But if we are not doing small activities, what does not help us, it affects us. Yeah, as I mentioned, no one wants to drink contaminated water. Everybody wants to drink good quality water. But without realizing our activities, certain activities that what we do, like what I alluded to earlier, affect the quality of water that we drink.
Yeah.
So the law is clear, even when it comes to boreholes, how you drill a borehole, it should be a certain distance away from the source of contamination. But if you don't follow the law of making sure that during the drilling of the borehole, WARMA, you come and get permission from WARMA and they check, you are going to drill a bore closer to a source of contamination, of which you get affected, you yourself and your family and the neighborhood. So it's meant for protecting that. So by doing this, constantly sharing information, people know why we do what we do. It's very, very important. That's why people get involved in water resources management.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We are on the WARMA radio program and we're talking about, today we're looking at the water resources as a common agenda, where we're having a detailed explanation on why water resources are a common agenda for all. And our studio guest is Mr. Douglas LUBABA, who's a senior research and planning officer. If you'd like to get interactive with Mr. LUBABA, you can call on 0955-221-515. Our phone lines are open, and also you can send a message, an SMS or WhatsApp to 0761912493. And you can also send a comment, you can comment on the 5FM Radio Zambia Facebook page where we're live. There is a question here from Evangelist Sitwala. Okay, so he says, good morning there. How do you make sure that water is safe for usage? Already we have cholera cases recorded, and this is just the onset of the rain season. The boreholes are so close to the pit latrines, sewers, etc., posing dangers to the people. Going forward, what measures are you putting in place to make sure the vice is curbed? Yeah, so that's Evangelist Sitwala.
Thank you so much, Evangelist Sitwala, for that question. Really, that's a very, very important question, and it's a very serious one. It's very, very concerning when it comes to drinking water, because all of us, we want to drink good quality water. No one wants to drink water which is not fit, because I think it will affect us. We are going to get sick. So one way we want to safeguard the public to ensure that the water that they are drinking is not contaminated. First of all, we do what we call water quality assessments. So this is based on what we call ambient water quality, the water as it should be in the environment. That's what WARMA does. So we go around the country. We have got a network of stations, including groundwater, which are very strategically located. So we monitor this water, know its quality. So if we find that there are any signs of contamination, then we investigate to really find out where this contamination is coming from, or which is the source of pollution, and then we act. So with regards to the issues to do with the boreholes being contaminated, being closer to the pit latrine, really it's a very serious issue, particularly in urban areas, because as you know, when it came to a settlement in the area, yes, people needed where to settle. So there are a lot of informal settlements. So informal settlement brings around issues to do with, they are not planned, well-coordinated planning. So people just move in, and then they build the houses, and then the pit latrines are there, and then it affects them. And it's very, very, very prominent in Lusaka, particularly during the rainy season. So when it rains, as you know, Lusaka, there's a lot of flooding here based on the geology and the rainfall that we receive and the setup of Lusaka. So you find that the water table is quite shallow. So when it rains, it gets saturated and then the gradient is we don't have a good gradient for water to fall. So the water goes there. So if you have closer, you have got pit latrines to there. So there's a likelihood that your water might go to there, and then it might be able to contaminate water resources. So I think in the past, WARMA with government and then with a lot of stakeholders, we have done assessment, produced what we call vulnerability maps for Lusaka, and then working with the government and the others, we have tried. That's why you have seen in the past there have been a project, the Millennium Challenge project, which we wanted to make sure that people are connected to water instead of using these pit latrines, and also they are connected to sewer. So I think it's a big challenge, of which I think government and the authority also they're working to making sure that everybody have safe drinking water. We avoid this kind of contamination because it's a legacy issue. It has been living with us, and then we need to do about it. So when the SI on the groundwater was issued in 2018, I think it was also meant to protect the groundwater, because in the past, management of groundwater was not part of what we are doing as an authority. So I think when the SI was in place, then it empowered us, and then we instituted certain measures for protection of groundwater. That's why the requirement is really very stiff, that when you want to drill a borehole, you need to visit the authority so that they give you a permit to drill. This is not just because we would want people to register. No, it's very important, because if you are managing groundwater, how do you manage something that you don't know? How can you quantify? How do we know how much water there is in Lusaka? How do you know how safe the drinking water is? Because part of the requirement when you're doing this, there's what we call safe frontline parameters, which we need to check in water as you are drilling to make sure, and they report up on them, the drillers. They're supposed to take this water to the lab as they are drilling to know what's the baseline, what is the water that we are drilling for this is. And then obviously with the sources of pollution which are close to, we make sure that we institute. So in terms of compliance monitoring, we have got inspectorate, a department or unit which does this inspection to make sure that the law is followed. That's why you find sometimes it might not be easy for WARMA to go ahead and drill when based on the investigation that they found, because they realize that the water might not be safe, it might be contaminated, as I mentioned to that. Thank you.
So what happens in a case where you advise a client to say, the distances are not so safe, and they still go ahead to drill? What happens in that case? Do you let it be just like that, or is there a follow-up later on? Yeah,
that's a very, very complex one. I think before I could just answer that one, I think I would go just a little while just to explain what obtains on the ground. If you realize when you are looking for land, a plot to, you find that sometimes you might find a plot which is maybe 15 by 20 or 20. These are quite small. But then looking at the law, it requires you to have a 30 meters distance from the borehole and a pit latrine or a source of pollution. So that's quite becomes complex, because they have got a small piece of land and you want water. Yeah, and water is quite, as we mentioned, is very, very important in human life. So what do you do? So you do find that we don't encourage to do that, but then people might go on and drill the bore, and the law is quite very, 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 very clear on that one. Obviously, you have to follow the law, but it becomes important. It becomes a complex one, because water, is a universal human rights, and people need to have access to water. But what is key is to ensure that such areas we are encouraging as an authority to have what we community drinking water points. So this is where you want to have a borehole through, obviously, the water utility companies or other companies. They will set up for that, then they get connected to water. It's just for that simple reasons that we want to protect the water resource, obviously, for contamination and avoiding people drinking contaminated water, because the CUs, as you know, that they have got the capabilities to be able to treat that water as they provide for you. Obviously, you need to pay something at the end of the month toward the water provision. So that's what we encourage as an authority. And also, it also helps us to protect the quantities of water. So to have what we call sustainable yield. So we don't have to have a lot of people everywhere that drilling that boreholes and then getting water. So looking into the future, I think this is the climate change era we are living in. So we make sure that sustainable usage of water is applied. Obviously, I've just added something that was not asked, but that's just to make sure that I emphasize the point that I was talking about. All
right. Okay, Evangelist Sitwala, I hope Mr. LUBABA has actually addressed your concerns. We take another break, pay our bills, and continue with WARMA on the other side.
Akabungwe ka Water Resources Management Authority WARMA kabungwe akapangwa okukonkana amafunde ya kyalo pesamba lyefunde liitwa Water Resources Management Act pakuchecheta n'okuwamya intulosha menshi muno Zambia. Pamilimo yesu paba okusanga n'okuchingirira inchende umwenga sangwa menshi ayasuma, okuchingirira inchende sha menshi ifyapala inika umubemba amabwe mfisapa ero na kuntulo ya menshi. Okuchecheta n'okuyishiba umubelo n'okufula kwa menshi n'okuyishiba nga kukaba ekirala nangu ilyenshi. Pamunga abo tubomba nabo mulekabirwa okulembesha ifishima fya menshi n'akabungwe ka WARMA. okulembesha ekishima kya pang'anda tatulipirishana kalya iyo abemba ifishima fyakubomfya kumakwebo balingi kupoka ipaso ili akubomfya menshi nangu kwimba ifishiba nga mulewayo kwishibira pwefingi moneni pa website yesu ya www.wama.org.zm.
Welcome back to the WAMA radio program. And yes, we're still talking about looking at the water resources as a common agenda, where we're having a detailed explanation on why water resources are a common agenda for all. And to help us learn more about that is a Senior Research and Planning Officer, Mr. Douglas Lubaba. Mr. Lubaba, what are your expectations from the public with regards to water resource protection and management?
Cecilia, that's a very, very good question. Really, I think the answer is a very quite simple one. I mean, we know water is a common agenda. So our expectation is that everybody plays a role, everybody actively participate in that. They do their part in ensuring that water resources is managed sustainably at various levels that where we are in. So what do we expect really from the public? I'll start by saying by following the law. It's very, very important that the law, they follow the law, they avoid contaminating water, they avoid doing activities that impact on water resources. I'll dive deep into that. You know, the issue to do with, obviously, all of us want to have gardens. If we are lucky that we have got a resource, a river that is flowing in our backyard or closer to our community, we want to take advantage of that so that we can have, I think, improve our footy and we can have income also just for our livelihood. So, but then, and as we are doing these activities, we ensure that we do not go closer to the riverbanks, because one, when we are doing that, we are going to obviously impact on water resources. So, and that one way, you know that you use agrochemicals in your gardens, you use fertilizers. So once you water this and once it rains, these will find themselves in water and then contaminate the water. So we are expecting people who are doing these things, who are gardening. Yes, let's do gardening in a safe way. And the law, it requires that there has to be a buffer of 50 meters away from the riverbanks as we are doing this. So our expectation is that as we continue to disseminate information, as people get this information, they avoid to do such vices. Even in rural areas, really, where people didn't know this, they know that you don't need to practice this agriculture, riverbank closer to the river. So our expectation is that we make sure that those vices are, if you are aware, we don't practice them, we don't do them. It helps us as we manage water resources. Secondly, I'll talk about other forms of encroachment. You know, the issue to do with land, like in Zambia, everybody wants to own their own land. But then we have to follow the law as we acquire this land. Because once we have this illegal land allocation, when we illegally obtain land, we don't know what lies beneath. It might be a recharge area for the water resources. It might be the headwaters. So when we go and we form these and plan settlement, so they have got a huge impact on water resources. So our expectation is that as people are acquiring this land, obviously they might not see a connection at that particular time, but there's a connection really, because where you get this land and you settle there and then you change the land use for that area. It could be a world waters. So it's important that the public, they do these things according to the law. Deforestation, yes, this area, people need, especially in the rural areas, to support their livelihood. Mostly they are involved in charcoal burning. And us in the cities, we require energy. We know that sometimes we have issues to do with load management, where we don't receive power every time. So we need to have an option where we would want to use charcoal. So we provide demand for charcoal. And then what does it do? Meaning the people who are supplying charcoal, they will cut more trees. They create more deforestation to meet the demand that we have. So what is that link? It means that as we do, this is energy we are talking about, but then it has a link to water resources, because they'll cut more trees to meet our energy demand. But then as we look for better options, let's sure that we reduce on this usage of charcoal. Obviously, electricity, I think I found electricity is cheap than charcoal, if you see, because you are promoting that vice, and then other alternative like gas and other things. By doing this, which are not linked to water, but then we are reducing the demand for charcoal. we are protecting our forest. Once we protect our forest, obviously most forests, they serve as headwaters for our rivers. Then we ensure that water resources, as we manage it, our burden is lightened a little bit as we manage water resources, because we know that in terms of quantity, we are safeguarding it. We are going to ensure that, I think, rains, they are not going to an impact. Yes, we know through climate change, but as we maintain our environment, our trees, importance. I talked about waste management, the way we throw our litter. Our expectation is that as we do this, we should have in mind that glass of water we are drinking. It's linked to what we throw. It will contaminate the water resources somewhere else, even for us, for ourselves. So we don't want to have what we call a boomerang effect. So what we throw coming back and to hit us again. So by doing these things sustainably, then we also help the water resources management to manage these water resources in a very quite sustainable way.
Okay. What challenges does WARMA face in trying to push forward this agenda? This particular agenda? Any challenges that WARMA faces in trying to push it?
Oh yeah, thank you. I think the challenges are quite very vivid. I think some of them have highlighted them as I was mentioning them. So one thing has to do with the human behavior. So it's a big challenge, the way we do things, we conduct things where we expected, for instance, issues to do with waste management. So for us, it's a challenge, because once we're having these heaps and heaps of waste piled up around the cities, if you see Lusaka, sometimes you find a lot of heaps of those things, and they contaminate groundwater resources. And the same people want to have good water. So it's a challenge for us. So human behavior is a challenge. We sensitize information. You are aware about the law about encroachment, but then we continue doing these encroachments. So for us, it's a challenge. So we need to see a change once people act responsibly, to think that they are expected, they are aware, but they are expected to act responsibly. It helps us as a water resources management to manage it. And then involvement of the public, of everybody. This remains a challenge. One is because information, obviously, the authority, we are not everywhere. And in terms of visibility, we are not very visible everywhere. So we make stride to make ourselves visible, obviously, by, as I mentioned earlier, collaborating with others. But then we need to sensitize more so that people can have more information for this. So when they have this lack of information itself, it's a challenge, because if people don't know what to do, they will do these things because it's a norm. They see it normal, but then it impacts on water resources. So it's a challenge also to WARMA. And then there are these things that we are talking about. Climate, everybody's talking about. Climate change is a climate era. It's a huge challenge to water resources management. Because look, it's very, very unpredictable. The onset of the rain season, sometimes it might come earlier and finish. It might come much later. The quantities of water, we might receive the same quantities of rains, but then it might come in within a short time frame. Then it affects our rivers. Our rivers don't get full to the capacity, and the water most passes, then we don't have sufficient water. Then that affects other areas of the economy. That's a challenge. Climate change is really a challenge that we need to obviously do our part as a water resources management, but also the public also to do some kind of mitigation to climate change by doing activities like planting trees, and also just having a sound environmental management, doing certain things like that. It also helps to mitigate part of these challenges that we have. And then the other issue is just to do with, if you look at the country, it's quite so big. So in terms of visibility, I think I mentioned earlier, it's a challenge, but that goes without saying. To do all these things, to manage these resources, requires quite resources. So on the resource part, also like everybody else, because of there are several competing needs. So water resource management is not something that is quite very tangible. People see, well, obviously people want to see water, but how do you manage these sources of water and plowing resources into this activity or function? Sometimes it might not be very easy. So when you have got limitation in terms of resource and prioritization, so it becomes a challenge to manage the whole Zambia and to do all these other functions that we are supposed to do, which the public obviously expect us to carry on. It's quite a challenge. Yes.
Okay. Your concluding remarks, Mr. LUBABA.
Well, it has been a very, very good interaction, a good program. Really, we have shared information about water resources management. So we know that water is everybody's business. So we need to act responsibly. All of us, everybody need to play our part in water resources by doing small things like avoiding throwing litter everywhere. We are helping in terms of water resources management by reporting illegal activities that are happening, which we see is not right. We are playing our role in terms of water resources management by, if you have got a bore, by registering your bore to WARMA. You are doing your responsibility. You are helping WARMA to manage your water resources sustainably. So I think everybody has to do our part to ensure that we manage water resources, Zambia's water resources, in the sustainable manner. Thank you so much, Cecilia.
Okay, thank you so much for coming through, Mr. Lubaba. All right, so that was Mr. Douglas Lubaba, who is a Senior Research and Planning Officer with WARMA, and we're looking at water resources as a common agenda, where we're having a detailed explanation on why water resources are a common agenda for all. Until next week, Friday at 8-10 hours, when we get to discuss some more important and serious matters concerning water and other issues to do with WARMA.
Management Authority WARMA radio program. Join us next time on 5 FM Radio.
Abungwe la Water Management Authority WARMA ndi bungwe lomwe lakhazikitsidwa kugwirisira ntchito malamulo owona pa zamadzi mdzikoli. Ntchito zawo ziphatikizapo kuteteza zamadzi komanso kumalo komwe kupezeka zamadzi monga kumadambo ndi malo ena otere. Onso amawona kuti kaya madzi ndi abwino motani komanso ndi ochuluka motani. Amaonanso pa nkhani za kusefukira kwa madzi komanso chilala cha mvula. Inu pokhala kastomala wathu mufunikira kulembetsa boho yanu ndi WARMA. Awo omwe agwiritsira ntchito madzi osati pa zamalonda kulembetsani mwaulere. Komanso mwagwiritsira ntchito madzi pa nkhani zamalonda afunikira kutenga chilolezo chogwiritsira ntchito madzi amenewa kapena kukonza madziwe. Ngati mfulumizo zambiri, fikani pa website yathu ya www.warma.org.zm.
You are the reason we are
89.9
5 FM. Today's life.
Time is 8:52 here on Yo Happy Day station. If you are just joining us, welcome to it. You are listening to 5 FM on 89.9, and you found the S-Side Breakfast Show in its dying minutes as we wind up our show. We've been with you all the way from 6 hours till now, when we are saying our goodbyes and going home. But of course, remember that today is
we are observing a day of national mourning in honor of the late Ngandu Peter Magande, our former finance minister, who died on October 23rd at age 76. So there's that happening today. So if you're here, that's why we've been playing gospel music throughout the day. But next week, operations resume as normal, except for Tuesday, which will also be another day of national mourning in honor of the late former Speaker of the National Assembly, Musa Mwanamwambwa.
all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's do this again on Monday when we return. Do have a lovely weekend. Remember to be safe. Remember to drink chlorinated or boiled water. Be safe. Let's try to prevent cholera the best way we can. We've been your hosts. My name is Lucy Banda.
My name is Esnat Lungu.
And I'm Cecilia TRESHA.
Do keep it locked right here. Taking us home, music of Abel Chungu Pamakufi. Have a lovely, lovely morning.
Eyes become blind, faith becomes sight, and I feel alive as I stare in your eyes. Sing through the night as daylight arrives, but I will not leave. I'll be here by your side. You may away. God won't leave. Down on my knees I pray. You call me. Isapanoli, natufuka melabili in prayer. Pama kofi, Imenka wila, pama kofi, Imenka fila, pama kofi.